the 2024 elections are going to be campaign based on facts, not propaganda. The certain is that all the political parties have chosen their candidates now, except CPP and other parties. But between these two political parties, the difference between the NDC candidate and the MPP candidate is one is honest, one is a pathological liar. The one can be a Muslim today, he'll be a Muslim in the morning, be a Christian at noon, be a Jew in the evening, be a Zoroastrian at midnight, be a Buddhist at dawn. He must take his position. This country is a secular state, and the NDC has demonstrated it doesn't matter where you are coming from. It doesn't matter your religious persuasion. What is important is that you belong to that which posterity will judge, and that is the reason why the difference between the NDC and the MPP is like daylight and deep dark night.
Whenever I say my PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
You are till for a PENDREAM TV in Pacho. When you say the news not off from an eddy bro. News say our babeti in Pacho. So what didn't want to Trebia and as what didn't Trefa. News be I present your platform with you for your voice note not for sending it. I was 0277 128 777. The debate 2 PENDREAM FM so Magana for you not on. Young court T and a story eddy bro.
And of course, most importantly, before I begin to comment, I want to take the opportunity to introduce to you and also the viewing public the distinguished personalities who are here and seated to observe Alaji and Alaji live in Tamale. And the chiefs are many, and distinguished individuals are also many. So I will just introduce but few. So if I am not able to mention the name of any chief or any distinguished personality, as your grandson, you would pardon me. We have in our midst, comrade, the chief of the Kpema, who is also my grandfather, whose territory in which we are having this occasion. His Royal Highness, the chief of the Kpema, is here with us. And also we have Nyabe To Lana, who is also here, a distinguished personality and educationist, who is also here to see how we're going to have this Alaji. His Royal Highness Nyabe To Lana is here with us. And also Nyabe Sanargo Kukona, a distinguished personality who are also ardent listeners of Alaji, who is here with us, and many other chiefs. Of course, I cannot indeed go with this introduction without mentioning my father, a very distinguished person in Tamale. I don't know what I would describe him as, an Islamic scholar or a philanthropist, Alaji Abdullah, and he's also here with us, and many other distinguished personalities. So if I'm not able to mention any name, pardon me, maybe in the course of the program we will introduce other dignitaries who are here. And as the MP for Tamale Central, we also have our constituency chairman, the Tamale Central, Tamale South, Sanargu, Tamale North, and in fact we also have even Savulgu constituency chairman and other constituencies who have all come to witness this program. We have our women organizers and many other people who necessarily are not aligned to any political party, who are also religiously, listening to Alaji from Radio Gold to Pan-Africa TV and the media. As the MP for Tamale Central and MP for Tamale South, unfortunately we do not have our brother MP for Sanargo. He would have loved to be here, but I think in the course of the program, the candidate for Sanargo would also be given the opportunity to make an input. And our senior brother, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, who would have also loved to be here. So on behalf of all these, my brothers, I want to thank Pan-Africa TV, thank Radio Gold, and most importantly, Senior Kosi Pratt, for having identified Tamale to be the place you should have this enormous program being held. Out of the 16 regions, you thought it wise to having it in Tamale. We are profoundly grateful. The people of the North have been getting their information, accurate, reliable information on national issues, political issues, economic issues, on Pan-Africa TV, particularly Alaji and Alaji. So we are profoundly grateful that you have chosen Tamale, you have chosen Northern Region to have this program. We are very grateful. So without much ado, I would want to get into the topic. And the topic I'm told we are looking at has to do with the national economy. And Senna, in his introduction, indicated that the national economy can be looked at in two ways, not necessarily the economy, but also the political aspects of our growth as a people. Because of the limited, time that we each would have, I would want to look at it in two perspectives. This country has been a country that existed several decades, if not centuries ago. But my focus is going to be on the Fourth Republic, when we have all chosen as a state to go democratically. Ghana has experienced the two major systems of governance. That is the parliamentary system and the presidential system. Before independence, when we were under the subjugation of the so-called colonial masters, they ruled us with the Queen as the higher or the authority that she had at that time over the so-called colonies. When we liberated ourselves politically and economically, we were still going with the parliamentary system, where the president himself is elected as a member of parliament. He appears before parliament at a point in time. And in the United Kingdom, you can see that the prime minister appears to parliament on every Wednesday. So we had that system. And then when Nkrumah unfortunately was criminally and illegally overthrown, then we moved into another system of governance. And with the parliamentary system, Second Republic, we decided to go through the presidential system. So we have tried both systems. But in 1992, we collectively agreed that because of the defects or the limitations we have experienced in both the parliamentary system and the presidential system, we decided to come out with a hybrid system. That is the combination of both the parliamentary system and the presidential system. The hybridity of the system indeed comes with some conditions. And Pandis will tell you that we have some challenges with regards to our democracy because of how the constitution was carved. Few countries have indeed practiced this system. Now, whatever the case is, having practiced the two systems and having considered the limitations of each, and having agreed that we must come with a combined system of governance, we have practiced this at least over 30 years now. The first time we had elections was in 1992, 1996, 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020. That was the last we have. The next one we'll be looking at is the 2024 elections, which is part of the topic we are looking at today. Now, what is significant is not just to lead, but every government comes with a policy. And that policy is certainly or ought to be anchored on the ideological position of the party which is given the authority to govern. The 1992 Constitution says, among others, in fact, if you look at the preamble, and my auntie, who is a lawyer, will tell you that the preamble says, among others, that the authority that is given to the president is just a vested authority. He or she exercises that authority for and on behalf of the people. So it means that if you are elected as a president, the authority with which you govern, it is not authority that is created by you. It's authority that is given to you by the people who have given you the mandate to govern. Now, every political party, as ought to be, your policy decisions should be anchored on the ideological position of your party. And that is what happens in many democracies. I am a member of NDC. I believe in the social democratic principles. And therefore, everything the NDC does should be anchored on the social democratic principles of ideology. And social democratic simply, and if I want to put in the simple terms, you ensure that there is social equity for everybody. It doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor. There should be equity and distribution of state resources. And the ultimate objective of every government is to improve the living conditions of your people. Our traditional authorities, their ultimate objective is to ensure that within their territories, people who live there live in comfort and in peace and in stability. That is what every government is expected to do. Now, if the objective is to improve the living conditions of your people, how do you achieve that? You achieve that first and foremost by expanding your economy, growing it, and once the economy expands or grows, opportunities are created, jobs are created. And once jobs are created, what happens? The disposable income in the hands of people can be improved so that they can meet basic needs. But you cannot do that if you don't have political stability. And the only way you can achieve that is to factor into your manifesto. These are the political agenda I want to pursue. So the people will look at in that particular agenda and decide whether they must give you the mandate to govern or not. We experienced this in the previous elections we have had, that we assumed, presumably, that people voted for the political parties based on the manifestos they presented. Fortunately or unfortunately, Ghana has multiple political parties. But we have had only 2 political parties that have had the opportunity to govern this country since 1992. And that is the NDC and the MPP. So if Ghanaians collectively think that democracy politically has not inured to the benefit of the Ghanaian people, I think that it will be humbling to admit that those of us who belong to these 2 political parties, that we might have failed the people of this country. But if Ghanaians think that, okay, there has been some improvement in the living conditions of the people of this country, then we can knock our chest and say that, yes, the democracy that we have practiced, it is yielding some needed benefits. And I think that we need to collectively, as actors of NDC and MPP, to admit that the challenges confronting us are challenges that can only be found solution to if we look at the policy that we have, politically and economically, for the purposes of we given the mandate to govern. And so now permit me to just quote Albert Einstein, who once said that the significant problems that confront us can never be solved with the thinking we had when we created them. What it simply means is that the problems confronting us are not problems that are created by anybody, but they are our own problems. Of course, some would argue that colonialism has also brought about systemic challenges that confront us. But can we continuously blame colonialism for the challenges that are confronting us? Yes, to some extent. But largely, if we had political freedom, what were the initiatives that were done by the political elite at that time to ensure that we completely break from the shackles of colonialism that inhibited our growth as a people? Now, we need to look at what Nkrumah did. Nkrumah was not just looking at political freedom, but his focus was also economic freedom. What were the plans he put in place to achieve the liberation economically? He came with a 5-year development plan, in fact, and again 7-year development plan. Unfortunately, my good brother who is sitting here and their forefathers truncated that process. If they had allowed the process to proceed, I don't think that Ghana would have been where we are. Of course, when we raised the issue, they say Nkrumah declared one-party state. But Nkrumah never came out and said, I'm going to have one-party state. That was what the people of this country, through their representatives, demanded. They felt that the only way we could develop this country and achieve the objectives set by Nkrumah for the purposes of having political emancipation and economic emancipation was to have a one-party state. So the decision to govern this country through one-party state was decided by Parliament. And parliamentarians are the representatives of the people. I represent the people of Tamale Central. My brother represents the people of Tamale North. We don't have a choice of our own. Whatever national decision that we want to participate in taking, we must take a decision that resonates with the people we represent, not what resonates with us. So the decision to have a one-party state was a decision that was collectively agreed by the masses of the people of this country through their representatives in Parliament. Because it's funny sometimes when people argue that yes, Nkrumah declared one-party state. At the time when they condemned Nkrumah, they were hailing Efebuanyi. Efebuanyi had already declared one-party state in Ivory Coast. Many of the countries that indeed achieved some economic growth, they had one leaders who ruled those countries for decades. We are being reminded the Asian tigers. How did they have those successive stories? They had those success stories because of the economic policies they put in place. The question I ask myself and I ask everybody, do we have a national agenda? If we have a national agenda, how do we all strive towards achieving that national agenda? I was fortunate to have participated in the drafting of the 40-year development plan, which indeed President Mahama put in place, led by Dr. Nimoy Thompson. The Minister for Trade was supposed to be a representative at the meeting, but I was delegated by my minister, Honorable Dr. Spiu Gabra, to represent him in all the meetings of the National Development Planning Committee. And I remember the first day I attended the meeting, the individuals I saw gave me some glimmer of hope. You had people from academia who had nothing to do with our main political actors or political activism in Ghana. You had people in industries. You had private individuals who neither belonged to NDC nor NPP. And in fact, you had leading members of NPP who participated in drafting the 40-year development plan. When this development plan was drafted, and unfortunately NDC lost the elections in 2016, I was seated at home watching TV, and that was in February 2017. Then President Nana Addo became the President of the Republic of Ghana. Nimoy Thompson and his team went to the Flagstaff House and presented to the President the 40-year development plan. And these were the words of President Nana Addo. And I want to paraphrase. He says, among others, that I have never seen a comprehensive national development plan such as what you have presented to me. These were the words of President Nana Addo. Unfortunately, and I want to believe, after they left the Flagstaff House, he looked around, saw the closest dustbin, and dumped the national development plan in that dustbin. Because the question is, if the president himself said that he had never seen a comprehensive national development plan such as the one which was presented to him, I shudder to think that the president would have read that national development plan, because they were leading members of MPP who participated. And I knew that a copy was sent to him before the official presentation was done. Now, if in the heart of the president, he believed in what President Mahama asked the National Development Plan Committee to do, I don't think that would have had any problem. What I can prefer, that what we need to do as members of the legislative arm, and I'm happy I'm here with my brother Honorable Soyene, we have a moral duty and a responsibility to ensure that we enact the needed laws that will compel political parties to craft their manifestos based on that which is captured in that 40-year national development plan. Because if you're able to do that, then there can be a way by which we can develop this country. If not, it will just be like a blind man, unfortunately, who is peddling a canoe in the middle of a sea or a river without having anybody to direct him or her. That is how we have been developing this country. If all our political parties are going to fashion out our manifestos based on what is captured in the National Development Plan, for me that is the way by which we can have a total political emancipation and economic growth in our developmental trajectory. And for me, that is one suggestion, Senator, I think that we can all do collectively. But the question is, the Fourth Republic. We have looked at the weaknesses, difficulties, and challenges we have experienced. We have three arms of government. And those three arms, including myself and my brother, and those of us, fortunately, who are in Parliament today, must also take responsibilities of the country's inability to be able to do some of the things we are expected to do. The three arms of government, which is made up of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, we have agreed to charter the path of democracy. So what it simply means, that never again should this country be ruled by a military dictatorship. Democracy comes with some conditions. And Professor Montesquieu, John Locke, and co., they propounded theories that talks about the separation of powers and the theories of checks and balances. Their focus and definition of the separation of powers simply means that these three arms, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, must have equal powers. And that equal powers must ensure what the conflict, especially if we say detente. The judiciary, which is made up of the judges, the police, and others. The legislature, which is made up of the members of parliament. And if you come to the local level, assemblymen, because we are practicing decentralization. And the executive, which is made up of the president and his ministers and appointees. That we must all have equal powers, such that one should not have more powers than the other. And that is the only way we can develop. Now, even having agreed this, one of the most important arms in a democracy is legislature, that is parliament. You can have a government without parliament, but you cannot have democracy without parliament. In a military dictatorship, you have the president and his appointees who are there. You have the judiciary that is operating, but you won't have parliament. But when you agree to charter the path of democracy, parliament is sine qua non in achieving democratic growth and development. The question is, are we that independent? Have we demonstrated the level of independence? Are we been able to do that which is expected of us to ensure that this separation of powers that we have preached on time and again is achieved to its maximum, benefit? My question is, unfortunately and sadly, we haven't been able to do so. And we haven't been able to do so, one, through the weakness that we experience in Parliament, and most importantly, our democratic and constitutional architecture. The 1992 Constitution says that the President must appoint at least 50% of his ministers from Parliament. What it simply means is that at least 50% or more of ministers should be members of Parliament. So you have people who are contesting to be elected as members of Parliament, not necessarily that they have a yearning desire to represent the people as members of Parliament, but they see Parliament as one of the means by which they can become members of the executive. So someone is contesting. He is not just interested in representing his constituents. He thinks that once he becomes a member of Parliament, it is easy, or the chances of he being appointed as a minister is very high. So in that aspect, it means that your parliamentary duty and responsibility will be affected. And it is not the fault of the one who wants to contest. It is the fault of our constitutional design, because that's what the Constitution says. And that is why the Constitutional Review Commission, which was led by Professor Atobiga, proposed that we needed to decouple or delink the hands of the president, so that the president can decide to appoint all his ministers outside Parliament, or he can decide to appoint all his ministers in Parliament. The difficulty of this constitutional arrangement is that you have someone who is a member of Parliament, a member of the legislature, and at the same time a member of executive because he's a minister. He takes a decision at cabinet, and at the time when the decision was being taken, he was a member of the executive. He was a minister of state or a deputy minister. Now they bring that decision to Parliament, which must ensure that right things are done for the benefit of the Ghanaian people. He comes there, he removes the executive gown, and he then wears the what? The legislative gown. Now, if he supported such a decision, he can't come to Parliament and be kicking against that decision, because that would be double standard. Even at cabinet, if he was a lone voice who was against it, once that decision is taken at cabinet level, it becomes a decision binding on him as a member of the executive. So when he comes to Parliament, you cannot see him kicking against the very decision that was taken at cabinet. And I think that one of the ways by which our political liberation as a democracy, as a country that has decided to charter a part of democracy, that weakness is occasioned by the same democratic architecture. And unfortunately, the weakness found space in the highest law of the land, that is the Constitution. So, Senna, one of the challenges we face in terms of our weaknesses as a country that chartered a part of democracy is the very Constitution, because the Constitution serves as an insulbeg on the hands of the executive in terms of the legislature in terms of doing what they are supposed to do. Now, since the year 2020, every government is supposed to present a budget to Parliament. When you present a budget to Parliament, that budget would have to be scrutinized. And then you take a decision whether that budget should be approved or not. It comes first in a policy statement. So what we approve first is what is described as a budget, is the policy statement of the government. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. You debate and you approve or you reject. If you have approved it, it doesn't give the executive the control to spend. You must approve that which is called appropriation, so that each ministry and agency would then present A, B, C, D they want to do. Now, they don't just present the estimates of the ministries and agencies. What they present first is the expenditure return. Last year, we gave you this amount of money. What did you use the money to do? Why are you asking for more? Why are you not asking for more? You must provide justification why you think that Parliament should give you more money or Parliament should reduce the amount of money that is given to you. That is where the work of members of Parliament is critical. Unfortunately, and sadly once again, the constitutional architecture denies Parliament that independence to do what is right for the people they represent. And why do I say that? I say that because simply, I am in Parliament for and on behalf of the NDC. My brother Suhini is in Parliament for and on behalf of NDC. When we were filing to contest as members of Parliament, the filing fee, alhamdulillah, we could have afforded, but we didn't pay our filing fee. Our filing fees were paid by the NDC. So your filing fee is paid by the party. So when you take a decision and the party decides to sack you from the party, you lose your seat as a member of Parliament. Once the party sacks you, may God forbid, if NDC decides that we are sacking Murtala from NDC and took that decision and sacked me from the party, I will cease to be a member of Parliament for Tamale Central. My seat will be declared vacant. In 2006, interestingly, this same hall, I contested the NDC parliamentary primaries to be elected as the NDC parliamentary candidate for Tamale Central in this hall. And sometimes when I look at the pictures, I didn't know how young I was looking at that time. What occasioned that was my father, my grandfather, my lecturer, Professor Waiseni, decided to defect from NDC to NPP. And the moment he did that, the NDC National Executive took a decision, sacked him from the party, and that occasioned the by-elections in 2006, for which I was a participant in the NDC primaries. So that constitutional arrangement also denies members of Parliament their independence. It denies them. Because, so whatever decision you take in Parliament must be a decision that is in sync with the party you represent. That, I must say, and sincerely, is not so much democratic enough. In other countries, in United Kingdom, for example, in many other countries, you can defect from a political party and still maintain your seat until the lifespan of that parliament ends. We have an outstanding personality, George Galloway, who opposed the invasion of Iraq by America and United Kingdom because the invasion was occasioned through Pact of Lies. We all know what senior comrade Kwesi Pratt and co did in Ghana as their opposition to it. George Galloway was a member of the Labour Party. He opposed it strongly, but the Labour Party didn't say we are sacking you from the Labour Party because we did that. They could only wait for the next elections. So for us to have a liberation, politically and economically, we must look at our constitutional arrangement and our democratic architecture. For me, Senna, that is very significant. Another aspect of our democracy has to do with the whip system. In Parliament, you have majority whip and minority whip. They must take a decision, the line you told. And there's something they call the 3 whip lines. You can feel strongly about something, but once your majority or minority whip says this is the line we take, you can only be suffocating internally. You can't speak outwardly or oppose it. Because once you do that, your party may sack you. So now, as to what we have been able to do this year, in terms of the economic development, looking at the political aspects, I think that the challenges that we have experienced over the years, and of course, 2020 is not an exception. First and foremost has to do with our constitutional arrangement and our democratic architecture. For me, that has brought a problem. Now let's look at the political parties. I represent the NDC. I'm on this program representing my party. He's on this program representing the Butterfly Fraternity. On this program, everything I say must be in sync with the party I represent. So permit me, Senna, to look at what the NDC did and what the MPP did in terms of this political growth and look at the economic growth. I don't know how many minutes I have now to conclude. 5 minutes. So 5 minutes, that is too much a time. I would just see if I'll be able to pack them. Now the NDC, within the period of 2008, when we won the elections, under Prof. Mills as the presidential candidate and the president, and President Mahama as the vice president. Now the NDCs ruled between 2009 to 2016. One of the reasons why the NDC lost elections was my brother. At that time, he was still with the MPP fraternity. They came with pact of lies. And you have Ed Bull, a parliamentarian in the United Kingdom, who says, voters don't vote deliveries, they vote promises. That's what voters vote. They don't vote what you have done, they vote what you promise them you'll be able to do. Under President Mills, one of the difficulties President Mills' administration faced within NDC was because he felt that we needed to charter a different path. He brought about political discipline and decency in our governance. He says, look, MMDC stay at post until we sanitize the system and then we can appoint new DCs. He says that witch hunting should be done away with. And therefore, as a democracy, when people engage in infractions, allow the laws to take its path. All these things were done. Some leading members within MPP, including our founder, were not happy about the posture of President Mills and President Mahama in terms of allowing some of these things to happen. And that created some problems within the NDC. You could find semblance of what we expect to see in a democratic state. Unfortunately, the moment President Nana Addo won the elections in 2016, they started the barbarism, political barbarism, the hooliganism, the attacks. People who were apolitical, who were holding positions by dint of their expertise and capacities, they were all asked to go. They chased people out. Sada in Tamale is a classical example. We do know that tricycles were taken, and I never knew that tricycles could also fly to Burkina Faso or to Ivory Coast. You had MPP young people in this country, in this region, who went and ransacked those places. The one thing people expected President Nana Addo to do at that time, someone who had once been a minister of foreign affairs, was at least to condemn that. He didn't only remain silent, he aided and abetted what they were doing. That was the beginning of the challenge. Now one would expect that all those things that happened today, as we see today, and I'm saying this sincerely, you find it difficult to look around to see a semblance of decency in democratic governance. You don't find that any longer. Apart from the political witch hunting, people were transferred forcefully, regardless the contributions they made in those aspects. One of the reasons, and some of the lies that your party, including my good brother, what you guys peddled, you said President Mahama had appointed family and friends, and I'm happy. My auntie Joyce Bauer is here. I call her my auntie because of my mother. Joyce Bauer was the only family member who worked in President Mahama's administration, and that is the niece. Now, this wouldn't have been an issue. President Nana Addo in February 2016 in Kumasi stated that he was not going to run family and friends government. And the only point of reference was Honorable Joyce Bauer, who was a lawyer in praxis 18 years before she was appointed a deputy minister. Now, what did we see under this administration in the first term? President Nana Addo appointed all manner of family members, including the daughter. Now today, I told my friend on a program before that the only way you can get appointment in MPP if you swear affidavit and add Ofuriata to your name. I was considering adding Ofuriata to my name, Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed Ofuriata. The moment you add Ofuriata to your name, you can get any contract, you can get any appointment in this government. One of the reasons why some of them were insulated from the booty that is being grabbed left, right, and center was because they didn't have Ofuriata in their names. And you know, my senior brother, Dr. Bawumia, he was the one who peddled some of this falsehood using the media. Central University College made their auditorium available to Dr. Bawumia to peddle those falsehood, those voodoo economics every day. Every single accusation made against President Mahama has come to hound them. And then I'll conclude on the economic trajectory, just briefly in 2 minutes. One of the reasons and why Ghanaians believed, they said we had escalated inflation, the economy was run agog, were engaged in corruption. President Mohammed and the wife have hotels in Dubai. All manner of stories were peddled. As we see today, they haven't even seen a receptionist of a hotel owned by President Mohammed in Dubai. So it is clearly a lie. Dr. Opuni, a press conference was held. And that press conference was addressed by the former Minister for Agri, that Dr. Opuni had squandered $400 million money of Cocoa Board. Dr. Opuni is being prosecuted. $400 million has not been found in any of the reasons for which Dr. Opuni is being prosecuted. $400 million is so much money. Inflation, you took it from NDC at 15% today. Inflation is hovering around 70%. Debt to GDP was a little over 60% under the NDC. Today, debt to GDP, it went to even 104%, and it has indeed come down to somewhere around 70 to 80%. In fact, if you look at Ministry of Trade, a ministry that I had the privileged opportunity to be appointed by President Mohammed to be a deputy minister. Under the Ministry of Trade, the NDC was spending a little over $500 million in the importation of rice and poultry products into this country. A little over $500 million. Within 6 years, this government, this incompetent and corrupt government, this government which disastrous economic management committee is headed by another incompetent liar, Dr. Bawumia. You are spending over $2 billion in the importation of something that President Mohammed was spending a little over $500 million to import into this country. As we see today, every aspect of the economy you have run it agog. Unemployment under the NDC was a little over 8%. You say President Mohammed has messed up the economy. Today, unemployment is hovering. In fact, the census figures was around 17.4. Today, unemployment is hovering around 13%. The least said about youth unemployment, the better. So you have run down, this government has run down every aspect of this economy. Nothing could be beneficial than the 24-hour economy President Mohammed is introducing against 2024. And Senna, just 30 seconds. The 24-hour economy, to be very honest, we have heard them argued that when you say 24-hour economy, what do you mean? A little boy growing up in Tamale, I knew fuel stations were run 24 hours. I knew that in this country, in this region, in Tamale, and thank God we're in Tamale, people could run their businesses 24 hours. The difference between the 24-hour economy that was selectively run by individuals and what President Mohammed is proposing, the state, this is the first time we have a national policy towards having a 24-hour economy. Okay. One institutions that are already running 24 hours, if you go to MPS at Tema Harbor, once again, which is the baby of President Mohammed, the yield, the productivity is so huge. You have a minister, a regional chairman of a party, who indeed tried to make our wives, our women, as sex objects, and said that he's going to deny us the opportunity to sleep with our women every day. Unfortunately, President Nanado didn't have the decency to condemn such xenophobic, such disastrous statement. The 24 hours is going to create the needed jobs. The 24 hours is going to provide job opportunities for young people who do not have jobs. And I'll conclude, Senna, by making reference to the NDC manifesto. If you read page 104 of the NDC 2020 manifesto, the 24 hours was proposed. Go and read the 40-year development plan of the NDC. The National Development Plan, the 40-year National Development Plan, which I was an active participant. The NDC had already, through the National Development Plan, indeed proposed a 24-hour economy. I think it is very clear that the good people of this country will choose between what is being presented to them and what President Mohammed presented to them. The 2024 elections are going to be campaign based on facts, not propaganda. The certain is that all the political parties have chosen their candidates now, except CPP and other parties. But between these two political parties, the difference between the NDC candidate and the MPP candidate is one is honest, one is a pathological liar. The one can be a Muslim today, he'll be a Muslim in the morning, be a Christian at noon, be a Jew in the evening, be a Zoroastrian at midnight, be a Buddhist at dawn. He must take his position. This country is a secular state, and the NDC has demonstrated It doesn't matter where you are coming from. It doesn't matter your religious persuasion. What is important is that you belong to that which posterity will judge. And that is the reason why the difference between the NDC and the MPP is like daylight and deep dark night. So that the people of this country, and I urge you, that support the NDC, the MPP people themselves are crying. Everybody is crying. And I thank you so much. And once again, I need to thank Pan Africa TV and Comrade Kwesi Pratt for bringing this home. This is the home of Pan Africa TV and Radio Gold. This is the home of Alaji and Alaji. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving me that little much time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Please pass on the mic to